Welcome back to the Game or Die podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Moore, and today I'm doing something a little bit special. I'm actually recording this podcast and streaming it live to Twitch. So, this episode is going to be talking about the games that I've been playing over the last about month or so. And it is actually a new year. It is now February of 2022. And so the first month in the year, I've actually played several games that I want to talk about. And that's pretty much it. I have been working and traveling. I traveled across the United States twice in the last week, or 2 weeks. And so I was actually pretty busy for the last couple of weeks in January. But luckily, I did get a lot of games finished. I actually started playing a game on Game Pass called Lake. And Lake is a game where you are this girl. I can't even remember the character's name. I got to go back through my notes and make better notes when I'm playing games. But you're this character and you're a computer programmer in 1980 something, like early 80s, like 82, 83, 84. So what you do is you basically are so stressed out about your job as a computer programmer in the 80s that you need to just get away from it all. Get away from it all. And unfortunately, fortunately, your parents actually have a cabin up in the mountains. And so what they'll do is they'll actually say, well, we're going to let you stay there while we go away to Florida. And this is kind of weird because this actually mirrored my life in the last couple of weeks. My parents actually went to Florida as well and vacationed there, and they came back and they loved it. And they're getting a little bit older, but they loved it. I don't think they're going to move there, but I would not be surprised by how often my parents move. But anyways, Lake is about a game where you vacation at your parents' house up in the mountains, and I think it's the mountains in Oregon is where the game actually takes place. Some random lake town in Oregon. And it's funny too, because I actually lived in a mountain lake town for about a decade of my life. The last 10 years or so, up until last year, I lived up in the mountains of Southern California in Lake Arrowhead, Twin Peaks, Running Springs, Big Bear, in that general area. So your character goes and says, I'm going to stay at my parents' house while they're gone and vacationing, but to help out, you actually pick up your dad's job, which is a post office mail carrier. You deliver people's mail, and that is the crux of the game. That is most of the game's mechanics, is going out and delivering mail to people in this little mountain town that you used to live in. So you actually know the people that you're delivering mail to for the most part. There's a couple new faces, but you know the people who lived in that mountain town when you lived there like 15 years ago, let's say. And you left after college, you wanted to, you moved to a big city, you became a computer programmer. Now you're stressed out about your job. So you come back and you basically go and deliver these people's mails, and you have pre-existing relationships and also new relationships. So it's a really sweet game. I really enjoyed this game for what it was. It took me, I finished it in an evening over the course of, I think I take that back. I think I finished it in about a day or two, and over the course of a couple sittings. And it's really nice. It doesn't really dig too deep into any weird stuff, with some of these indie games that are smaller that are coming out on Game Pass. There's this opportunity that a lot of people will subvert your expectations and completely change the way or the direction the game goes. So it might start off really nice and sweet and then move into something dark and sinister and a more overbearing and eviler plot, which I'm not really a big fan of most of the time. There's a few exceptions to that rule, like anything, but for the most part, I don't like it. And Lake is not that type of game. It is exactly what it sets out to be at the beginning, which is this really nice story about this computer programmer who uh, goes to her parents' house and where she used to live and grew up, and kind of take over her dad's job for a couple of weeks while she kind of figures out what she wants to do with her life. And it's really cool because there are multiple endings to this actual game. It's not just, oh, here's the one ending and you have to follow that. There's multiple choices here. And it's really cool because you can actually see the characters kind of respond differently in the different ways that you react to them. And you say, "Oh, I don't like this person," or someone has something against you, and you can either be a jerk about it, or you can say sorry, or you can be indifferent. It's multiple different things that are really interesting to be able to see how these games and in storylines can play out depending on who is playing them. And that's what's really fun about video games in the first place. So the multiple endings thing, I kind of picked up like, ooh, what is this game wanting me to do? Because usually when I play a game, I'm expecting there to be a solid storyline where I play through the game, I finish the game with the storyline that is intended by the game makers or the developers. But especially in the last 15 years or so, or not even 15, I'd say last 10 years, video games have definitely progressed to the point where you can make your own choices. And that's much more broad in most games now. So I picked the ending where I stayed in town and hooked up with the guy who fell in love with me, who I used to know, or the lumberjack guy or whatever it was. But it was a really interesting, nice little side story, and I liked that I could basically make my character do what I wanted the character to do instead of some predispositioned, here's what it's going to happen. The video game, or not the video store clerk is in love with you and you go off on this lesbian tangent or some crap like that. No, I had the lumberjack who I was helping out, basically save his lumberjacking area from being overdeveloped into condominiums. And then he fell in love with me. He told me he loved me. And I said, you know what? Instead of going off to this, go back to the big city and become a wealthy computer programmer, because like there's this whole sub story about your company that you're working for that you kind of got away from for a couple weeks. You went on vacation from. It basically got sold into this multi-million-dollar corporation thing. And you can either choose to go back, or you can stay in your old place that you lived. And I really like especially learning or living in a small lake town for over a decade. Like, that is so much better than a big city to me. So I wanted to stay in the lake town, see where the relationship went with the lumberjack and stuff like that. And I had a really nice time with it. Unfortunately, I will say the game does this thing where they want you to deliver packages. Like, that is the main core mechanic of the game. Is you get in your mail truck at the beginning of the day, and you have a certain list of spots that you need to hit and drop off either mail or packages to people. And as you drop off packages, some people are waiting for it, and you talk to them and you have conversations with them, or you just kind of drop it off in the mailbox, and then you go back to the truck and you do the next house and the next house and the next house, and then that's the end of the day, and you have kind of a little wrap up at the end of the day. But about halfway through, I kind of just got tired of doing the mail route, because most of the time there was like one thing that you needed to do, and then you had to go all the way around the lake and stuff like that. And it was more tedious than it needed to be. And especially because as the days progressed, every day that you stayed with that job and continued on with the game, you had to actually deliver more and more and more and more packages, to the point where you're spending like 20 minutes just delivering packages around the town, instead of like the first like the first few days you're delivering like 2 or 3 packages, and it takes like 3 or 4 minutes to complete. And then you're spending like 15-20 minutes delivering like 10 packages, and some of them are way out in the boondocks, all the way. It takes just 5 minutes to get out there and then drop it off, and then you have to drive all the way back. And anyways, it was really interesting, and especially with the video game or video store clerk who wants you to help her with the business, saying, hey, my business is struggling, and I've got this idea to basically give people VHS players and a movie, and recommend them a movie. I thought that was really cool. As someone who owned their own video game store for a couple years, I would try and do something like that with my store too, where I actually told people and recommended games to people all the time. It was so much fun to be able to say, hey, what type of games do you like? Oh, you like platforming games? Well, let me recommend Psychonauts to you. And I would recommend someone Psychonauts based off the fact that I knew they liked, 3D platforming games. Or if they liked sports games, I would say, well, what type of sports? And, oh, you like football? Okay, well, there's always Madden, but maybe try something a little bit more arcade style, like NFL Blitz. Oh, you've never played Blitz before? It's like hyper realistic. It's over the top, unnecessary roughness where you're pounding people into the ground after you tackle them and do leg drops on them. And I would get people to play games that they might not have been familiar with just by asking them who they are and what type of things they like. So I liked that video store clerk was trying to do that. And so you go to this guy who owns a fishing boat and basically is out on the like very edge of the lake on a dock. And he's kind of an older, grumpier guy. And you basically say, hey, well, I have 2 videotapes that the person thinks, the video store clerk thinks you might like, Jaws or The Dirty Dozen. So you have a movie about a killer shark, because he's a fisherman, so he'll probably like that, or The Dirty Dozen because he's an older, grumpier guy and he probably likes war movies. So which one do you give him? And you have that choice. And it was really interesting to be able to say, well, I'm sitting on a dock right now talking to this guy. He's standing in his boat and he says, I don't know, you pick one for me. And so you got to pick and make that choice of, do you give him the war movie or do you give him Jaws? And I gave him Jaws, and coming back the next day to see how he liked it, he was like, yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was great. And it's like, dude, stuff like that, little touches like that make these types of games so much more enjoyable. And I loved it to death. It's something that I really, really wish that more people would, spread out a little bit and change broaden their horizons of the types of games that they play. I definitely have that, well, I like these types of games and I don't really like these types of games. Like on our Discord, we were talking about card games because everyone was in love with Inscription. And I don't know really anything about that. I could pull it up right now if I wanted to and probably go, ooh, that doesn't seem like a game for me. But when I hear other people talk about games and explain games in a interesting way, I would at least like to try it out. So if someone tells me, oh, Inscription is really good because of these reasons, and those reasons sound intriguing to me, I'll at least give it a try if I can. If it's not either too expensive or if it's free, I'll try it out. Whatever. But Lake is definitely, it's on Game Pass. And if you have Game Pass, which pretty much everyone should, if you have an Xbox or you have a capable gaming PC, Game Pass is an absolute bargain. For Christmas this year, I told the story on my Discord. I'm going to try and talk about my Discord a little bit more often in the podcast because we started it just a little over a year ago now, and it's a pretty small community, all things considered, but it is really fun to be able to talk to these people who I don't know in real life, which I never really do. I'm not a big talker of to people on message boards or forums or anything unless I'm trying to get information. But talking to these people in the Discord, I did something for Christmas. I was telling a story about how I loved Christmas time. Christmas is my favorite time of year, but I loved Christmas time in the early aughts because I was really hardcore into the emulation scene and modding scene. So modding Xboxes, doing emulation and things like that. Well, back then, the emulation scene, Christmas was always the best time of year because everyone would hold off on huge updates until Christmas Eve and then release on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day their massive update that would bring crazy new developments to their emulators. You would have like game state staving, which wasn't a thing before and now it is, or, PDF documents so that you can view manuals, or, this game didn't work, but now it does. And, I remember, I think it was the Mupen 64 version of the N64 emulator for the original Xbox, and they had the Rice plugin, and the version, it was called Surreal 64. And so Surreal 64 was this Nintendo 64 emulator that this person, whoever made it, I can't remember who it was. I can't remember if it's Modern Vintage Gamer or whatever, but he put out this release, and it added functionality to like GoldenEye 007, Conker's Bad Fur Day, just games that were always held up as don't play well on this emulator, and they really did a fantastic job of being able to be played. And it actually has something that I think most emulators still should have, and they don't. A recommended settings. So you could click the recommended settings for a certain game, and it would change the specific settings for that game instantaneously so that it would play that game properly, but it wouldn't change all the things globally, so you wouldn't mess up any other game settings. It was really cool. So I was telling this story, and I did this whole Christmas Eve. Here is a Launchbox, which is a front-end emulator, all-in-one system that I'm actually currently looking at right now. And it is, I gave this out to the Discord as like my Christmas present and all this stuff. And I was telling people, this is basically like, I couldn't imagine as a kid being gifted something like this. Like, just like Game Pass. Game Pass is that thing where it's like, here are hundreds and thousands of video games at your fingertips, and all you have to do is click a button. I remember getting Christmas presents as a kid and like getting Crash Bandicoot Warped when I was younger on the original PlayStation, and just my eyes lighting up going, oh my gosh, I can't believe I got this one game. And I would play that one game for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month straight. I can't imagine being a kid and having hundreds or thousands of video games at my fingertips like that. Like, that's incredible. So I think Game Pass is a fantastic reason to get it because of something like that. And Lake is definitely worth trying to at least start up and see if it's something that you'll enjoy. It's definitely worth it. So that's Lake. And then because of Game Pass, I actually started up Mortal Kombat 11. I'm not a big fighting game person to begin with. And Mortal Kombat is one of those games that my wife hates. She hates me watching anything Mortal Kombat related. She hates me playing those games. And so I waited until she went to sleep, and I loaded up Mortal Kombat 11 because it came out on Game Pass, and I was like, oh, I played all the other Mortal Kombats, basically. I played 1, 2, 3. I don't remember playing much of 4 or whatever. I loved Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, and I can't remember what the other would. Deception, I think it was the other one, Mortal Kombat Deception. I loved those games. And then Mortal Kombat 9 came out, and man, it just blew everyone away by how cool it was for them to come back and basically recreate the first three games in that Mortal Kombat 9 engine with voice acting. The story mode was really good and all that stuff. So Mortal Kombat 10 came out, and I waited several years for that to come to, I think it was like Humble Bundle or something. And I got a copy of that, and I played through that, and I enjoyed it, but I'm not good at those games. I remember playing Mortal Kombat 9 and just getting my butt handed to me. Like, oh my gosh, it took so long for me to get anywhere near the end of that game. And I think Shao Kahn was the final boss in that game. And I just remember sitting there for what felt like hours trying to beat him. It just was so difficult. But luckily, I turned the I turned the difficulty down for 10 and 11 because I just wanted to see the story. I really liked the story in those games, and if difficulty is gonna gate my progress because I don't learn move sets, I don't play fighting games. I'm really bad at button combination inputs like that, where you have to do forward, back, quarter circle, forward, X, A, B, square. Like, I'm just not good at that type of stuff. So I lowered the difficulty just by one, and I was able to finish the Mortal Kombat 10, and I did that with 11, and I really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, there's a whole DLC called Aftermath, and I did not play that because I was not going to buy DLC for a game I didn't own, and also it was still pretty expensive. It was like $20 or so, and I would like to play it at some point, maybe, but I finished the main campaign and the main story, and I really had a good time with it. I thought the time travel in movies and games are always a little bit weird because a lot of the not as well thought out ones are just kind of redoing something that's already been done. And then sometimes you go like way on the other end of it where you have stories that just try to, over explain everything and make it so complicated that it's not even fun or enjoyable to pay attention to, and you just kind of don't care. So I thought that Mortal Kombat 11 did a pretty stinking good job of incorporating time travel, having it make sense, I guess, and then, having these characters meet with their younger and older selves and dealing with the fallout of that. I really, really liked it. And especially dealing with people like Johnny Cage, who in the original, games was like this Hollywood actor and super arrogant and a jerk and machismo and all that stuff. And then having him interact with his older father figure self and seeing how they talk to each other and how everyone hates arrogant younger Johnny, but everyone respects older Johnny Cage. Like, it's really interesting, and I really, really enjoyed that game. It's also super violent. It's super ultra crazy violent. Mortal Kombat has not lost its edge, and it was really, really nice to be able to play something like that for a little bit and just go, yeah, this is just like when I was a kid. Man, Mortal Kombat came out when I was like 7 or 8, and my parents let me rent it because my parents were A, cool, and also B, they understood that this is a really ultra violent game, but I was at that age where I was mature enough to know this is a video game. I'm not going to actually try and rip people's spines out by their necks. Like, and especially, with that, like, it's, look back at Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 and tell me how lame it looks compared to something now. Like Mortal Kombat 11's 10 and 11's fatalities are just so gruesome. Sometimes I have to look away because it's unpleasant to look at, but it is still really, really fun to play. So, like I said, my Discord's really cool, and I'll probably do some links to it later on in maybe another episode or two, because we're actually going through a name change right now. We're trying to figure out what to call ourselves, because we originally started on NeoGAF, um, and we were the Giant Bomb thread. And unfortunately, back in late 2020, early 2021, uh, the Giant Bomb thread got just nuked out of existence because we were too negative, or some people were. I think we were being pretty reasonable, and a couple people unfortunately took it too far, like people do, and it got nuked. And then anytime someone would reference like what happened to the Giant Bomb thread, or where do we talk about Giant Bomb, like people would get banned and all this stuff, and it was just ridiculous. So I started up this Discord server, and we were just called like the NeoGAF Giant Bomb ban thread Discord server. I think that's our official name. So it was over the last year, all of us have kind of fallen away from Giant Bomb because of how they've just put themselves out there and how they've conducted business, and they're basically no longer Giant Bomb in anything other than name itself, really. They don't really do quick looks. They don't really talk about video games or play video games. It's all about hiring people who have no idea what Giant Bomb even is and having them do random crap. So basically we're all just like, well, we don't really pay attention to Giant Bomb, and even half of Giant Bomb left because Giant Bomb sucks so much. So we're trying to figure out a name, and once that happens, I'll probably actually start dropping references more and more to the Discord, in case anyone who is watching or listening wants to be a part of our server, because it's a pretty cool place. I've actually cleaned it up a lot lately with categories and organizing, and just generally trying to make it a more fun and enjoyable place for everyone. And one of those initiatives is doing a Game of the Month club. A couple users were actually talking about a game called Skate 2, and man, I did not like Skate 2 or 3 or 1 when they first came out all that much. I was just like, it's a skateboard game. I'll play it a little bit. I had the store at the time too, so I didn't play a whole lot of it. But I remember having some fun with it, but having a really hard time with the main storyline and quest and objectives and all that. Well, these guys on the Discord server were talking about it so enthusiastically, like I was talking about earlier, that it made me want to play it. And so I suggested, hey, should we do like a Game of the Month club? Would anybody be interested in that? And everyone's like, yeah, that would be great. So we started Game of the Month club, and for January of 2022, guess what? We did Skate 2. So just like my Christmas present, I loaded up an emulator and bundled it with Skate 2 so that anyone who wanted to play this game could play it. I want our community to be a place where we talk about games, either if we like them or don't like them, and we don't have to worry about being negative or too enthusiastic or anything like that. And I wanted everyone to be included in the conversation, be able to play it. So I bundled this emulator together with the game, and threw it on Google Drive and said, hey, anyone who wants it, download it, here you go. So we did Game of the Month for January of 2022, which was Skate 2. Now, if you've been listening to the podcast for any amount of time, I love series. I love series and franchises of video games. So when I started Skate 2, they're immediately referencing the first game, because it's a direct sequel, Skate and then Skate 2. But I wanted to do something, and I wanted to play that in sequential order. So what I did is I actually played maybe like an hour or so of Skate 2, and then I went back, because I own Skate 1 and Skate 3 on Xbox, and they're backwards compatible. So I loaded up Skate 1, I didn't have any game save, because I did play through it, and I looked through the achievements and I got like halfway through the game or whatever. But I loaded up the game and just started playing it. I loaded up Skate 1, started playing through it, and having just a blast playing it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of really bad voice acting from the skaters. All of the skaters sound either A, like they were just forced into a audio booth and told to read a couple of lines and then got them out there, because it's a really bad reads. It's like asking you know, a pro athlete, a basketball or football star to come in and record lines for your video game, for a licensed game. It sounds awful. It sounds like, "Oh yeah, tight, man. You should go skate that hubba with me and go to make the transition. Drop the tranny into the hubba gap. Word?" And it just feels very stilted and unnatural, and it's just really bad voice acting. So that was kind of a bummer. And the game also feels really small. And I'm just talking about the first game. So the original Skate uh, came out in 2008, and I remember really liking parts of it, but I could just never wrap my mind around the flick controls of the analog stick. Flick tricks uh, were just so hard for me to really pull off what I wanted when I wanted. If I tried to do a kickflip, I would just ollie. If I tried to do a nollie heel flip, I would just nollie. Stuff like that. And as I progressed through the game, I got a little bit better at it, but unfortunately, there's like a couple objectives, like the one with Rob Dyrdek, and no, I think that's in 2. I honestly can't remember at this point. No, it's in 1. So in Skate 1, at the very end of the game, you have Rob Dyrdek and Big Black, who I actually met at E3 long time ago, because unfortunately he's dead now. But Big Black was really cool dude. He was big and awesome. So um, that's either here nor there. The objective itself is actually do a 360 flip, a frontside 360 flip, while Big Black is walking back and forth between these benches and kind of blocking your progress. And so you got to time it. It's actually not really that hard to grind on. In you have to do like a frontside 360 flip to a frontside nose blunt or something like that. And that's all you have to do. It should take you maybe 30 seconds at most, 2 tries, 4 tries, something like that, and then you should have it. I spent like 45 minutes trying to do this stupid trick, 360 flip, and every time either do like a kick flip or a heel flip or a varial flip or something like that, never a 360 flip. And I just kept going and going and going. It's like 2:00 in the morning. I'm tired. And I finally did the 360 flip. And this is what I'm talking about. I have such a hard time with some of those controls, getting the flip trick that I want out of it, that it's really frustrating. So I finally did the 360 flip. I did the grind. I jumped off and I landed it. And it said, "You didn't do it." I said, "What?" And it said, "You didn't do the front side nose blunt." I just spent 45 minutes trying to get the 360 flip down. I did it, and I didn't get the right nose blunt. I had the backside nose blunt instead of the front side nose blunt. I was like, "You gotta be kidding me." So I restarted and I tried it like 2 or 3 more times. I couldn't get the 360 flip, and I just said, "You know what? I'm just going to not do this objective," and just finished up the rest of the game. Stuff like that is really frustrating to me, especially when I didn't have too difficult of a time with that game. There was a couple where it definitely took me a while to get the trick down or whatever, but nothing too terribly difficult. So once I finished Skate, I finally was able to move on to our game of the month club game of Skate 2. Skate 2, oh my gosh, feels so much better. It is a larger in scope. It has a much better graphics than the original. The storyline continues on. And one thing I will say is the intros to the Skate series are phenomenal. It is some of the best intros to a video game of all time, and not really because they do anything special. It's just interesting. It's all FMV. It's all real life footage of a ton of pro skaters doing a bunch of cameos, doing wacky stuff. None of them are really skating for the most part. They're all just being goofy and doing, something. There's the first part in Skate 1, the intro is you get hit by a bus. Your character gets immediately hit by a bus, and so you got to get tracked on to the hospital. And so there's this ambulance that pulls up, and like there's all these skaters that are either nurses or doctors or ambulance people or people on the sidewalk or whatever. And the intro is just them doing this goofy stuff, and it's really good production quality too. It's mind blowing how well produced this intro video cutscene is to this skateboarding video game. So that's Skate 1. Skate 2 does it ramps up the production quality of making it almost like a movie where you are getting out of jail. So you start in jail. Danny Way is the police officer that pulls you out of like solitary confinement, drags you along the jail cells, and you have a bunch of skaters in the like jail courtyard, and as other cops and people greeting you outside like the Blues Brothers after you get out of jail. Is just really, really, really cool. So you do that, and Skate 2 is just bigger and better. Everyone is referencing that you've gotten out of jail for whatever reason. They don't really explain it because the ending of the game of Skate 1 doesn't really say you went to jail. It just says you finished the game. So you go to Skate 2, everyone's saying you just got out of jail. Oh man, let's go skate it up. And so you go skate it up, and you're in the new version of the city you were in Skate 1. Skate 1 is San Vanalona, and then Skate 2 is New San Vanalona, where it's the same area, but way more populated, way bigger, and also part of it is overgrown. And it really reminded me of the Tony Hawk remake that came out in 2020. That game took all the old elements and levels, like the school and the mall, and made them abandoned and overgrown with vines and shrubbery and all this stuff. And Skate 2 does the same thing, where you have like this mega ramp is one of the ending parts of Skate 1, and you go to the mega ramp where you finish the first game, and it's all overgrown. Parts are broken, pieces of the ramps are missing and stuff like that. It just feels like very abandoned. And it's like, wow, that's really cool. They put a lot of time and effort into making this so much more enjoyable. So I finished Skate 2, and Skate 2 ends with you at like doing this just crazy like X Games. Yeah, I think you end it with doing the X Games in this like big stadium event, and you have the ultra mega ramp where you jump off and do like these crazy tricks and stuff. And it was really, really fun. And I'm really glad our community decided that was it for January's Game of the Month Club. But just if you know me, I'm not going to just stop at the second game in a series. I'm going to continue on. And so I played through Skate 3 as well. And we were talking about it because I finished it, and I had a couple of people watching me as I was playing Skate 2. I did a couple live streams, just like I'm live streaming this on Twitch right now. And I was playing Skate 2 and talking to everyone, having a really good time streaming the game. And then when I finished it, I was actually streaming but not talking. And so one of the guys in our Discord, he was like, "Oh man, you gonna play Skate 3?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I played Skate 3, and all I remember from Skate 3 is I had the store when it came out. My friend and buddy I worked with, my core group kid Phil, he got the game and he was playing it off of his shift. Like he finished his shift, or he came in the day he wasn't working, and he started playing the game in the store. And I just remember Jason Lee as Coach Frank, and he was the only part of Skate 3 that I really remember. And I do remember loading it up, Skate 3, when it came backwards compatible like a year or two ago, and loading it up and going, where am I in the story? I don't remember any tricks or whatever. So it was really nice to be able to play through Skate 1, Skate 2, and then go back to Skate 3. And I had the decision of, do I wipe my save? Because I didn't have a game save for Skate 1, I didn't have a game save for Skate 2, but I did have my game save for Skate 3. What do I do? Do I keep my game save or do I wipe it? And I decided to wipe it, and I'm really glad I did, because I was able to go through the story, because I don't even remember anything. And unfortunately, the story of Skate 3 is so terrible that it kind of ruins a lot of that game, the feeling of how that game feels connected to, the larger world of the series and stuff. So in Skate 1, you get basically hooked up with a guy named Reda, Reda. And he is like this loudmouth kind of cocky guy who is the videographer. He is videotaping you skating, and he skates around with you and you buddy with you and films you as you play through the game. Well, everyone kind of doesn't like him a little bit. They're like half like jokey, like, haha, Reda, you suck. But I believe there's a lot of truth to those phrases whenever someone says it in the game. So he tags along with you in the first game. He picks you up when you get out of jail, and so you go skate with him, and he reintroduces you to a bunch of people in Skate 2. And then Skate 3 starts off with you doing this crazy stunt off of this building and just bailing out and wrecking it. And you don't die or anything. You just get kind of like knocked out, and then you come to, and he's standing over you, and he's like, oh man, yo, you know what? We should make our own skate company. We should make skateboards. All right, I'm going to go start this company, and you do the promotion stuff. And he just ghosts on you. He just totally leaves you for the entire game. The character that's been with you for 2 full games, nonstop talking, just leaves and abandons you. He's still technically with you as like calls you up and says, oh man, we sold 100,000 skateboards. Great job. And that's it. He's the one who talks out throughout the entire 2 games, and then has like maybe 4 voiced lines in the entire game. The very beginning, when he leaves you, you basically, he says, hey, come follow me. Let's go. And you skate at the very beginning to this college area. And you come across another videographer, and you say, hey, you want to be part of our company? We're going to start a skate company. And he goes, yeah, I'll join you, man. And then Reda goes, all right, peace. And then just leaves. And you never see him again until the very, 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 very end of the game, and the last final cutscene. And so this skater guy that videographer that you hook up with now takes his place, but he's so just lame. Oh man, you totally bailed. Ambulance, someone get an ambulance over here, man. Like, he just sounds like Tommy Chong Hai. Like, that's really what he sounds like. And it's a bummer too, because Skate 2, when you bail, feels so crazy because of Reda's voice acting in that game. When you nail, like, head on into a dumpster, he laughs and goes, oh my gosh. Oh man, we gotta, dude, are you okay? Oh man, dude, that was bad. That was wicked sick. And like, you can tell the voice actor is having a really good time with that, those voice acting lines and stuff like that, and it just makes it feel more real. When you go head first into a planter and break 17 teeth out, and your new videographer guy goes, oh man, you okay? Like, it doesn't feel the same. The voice acting, unfortunately, for the most part, is like that. There are definitely people like Rob Dyrdek and other people in the games that you come across who do a pretty good job of voice acting and really help make the game come alive in a little bit. But just like I was talking with on the server, like, there's something about Skate 3's like whole world that just feels really, really empty. You could skate through the entire level and in Skate 2, and there was tons of places to do really cool lines, skate lines and stuff like that, and come up with really cool ways of doing fun tricks. In Skate 3 is so empty that I didn't even skate through most of it. I actually just teleported from objective to objective because just getting from one place to another was felt so empty and so unenjoyable. And also along with that, like it just the the world feels so empty. There is all these competitions that you do, and I'll give props to the voice actor who does all the like skating competition announcements. Like he is giving it his all, and they recorded he's the most voice acted character in the entire game for sure. And he has so many different takes of this different or the same types of lines. So like if you restart over and over and over and over again, you're hearing like 5 different takes of like a 30-minute, spiel at the beginning of a race or during, a competition or something like that. It's really cool. But unfortunately, as he's going through that spiel, like saying, "Hey, welcome to the Skate Jam. I'm your host, Retta, and it's not Retta, but whatever. I'm your host, Jimmy, and today we're gonna do a skate line where you got to trick over the hubba gab, grind down the rail, and then transition into the half pipe. All right, everyone, 1, 2, 3, go!" And he does all of that, and it sounds really fun and cool. But there's silence in the background. There's no crowd cheering. There's no talking in the background, like ambiance or sound effects or anything. It is just a single voiced sample playing against dead air. And unfortunately, it just feels, especially when it's coupled with the visuals, it is so noticeable. And at the very, very end, and this game doesn't have an ending either. It just kind of plays this last cutscene to tell you what you're going to do next. But once you do it, you don't actually get a cutscene or an achievement or anything like that. It just says, "All right, here you go. You're done with the game, I guess." So you do all this stuff and you build this company, and you get all these skaters to kind of join your company, or all these three skaters to join your company. And you then show up at this mega monster sponsored event. And sponsors in video games are the worst. There's a whole like category or a subsection of events with T-Mobile as a sponsor, and it feels scummy. And especially now so far removed, like almost a decade, or over a decade removed from the game coming out, it just feels really, really pathetic that they had to add T-Mobile as a sponsor or Monster Energy drink as a sponsor. But anyways, you go to the Monster Energy drink Mega Jam, like X Games sponsored event, and you do all the tricks and all that stuff. And as you are doing this stuff, like you get introduced like to the ultra mega ramp. This thing is massive. It is crazy. It is the final portion of the game. And the voice actor goes, "All right, everyone, welcome to the Monster Jam, mega ramp competition. You've got this massive monster of a ramp and blah, blah, blah." And he goes off and off and off. And it's this huge stadium, but it is completely 1000% empty. There's not a single other character model in the entire thing. So you're doing this whole crazy event with this disembodied voice going off telling you how crazy it is. And you hear the audience like wooing in the background, like clamoring, and you hear the audio of an audience, but you don't see anyone in the stands, and the lights are on, so you can kind of see through where the people should be, and there's no one there. It just feels empty in a way that the game shouldn't feel like. It felt rushed, and I hate saying that, but it really does feel like the game was rushed in a way to where you have no idea who is watching you because you can't see anyone, even though you can hear them. And it's really off-putting. And it's just a bummer that series kind of ended like how it did, because it definitely doesn't feel finished. Like, you don't get any end credits or anything like that. You don't even get a screen like in Skate 1 and 2. When you finish the game, it says, "You finished the game. Congratulations. There's more stuff to do." There's none of that. When you make 1,000,000 board cells, you're the whole goal of the game is to progress and sell boards, skateboards, because that is the intro of Skate Through 3, is kind of this really cool like factory making of a skateboard deck. So you have the tree, it gets cut down, it gets put into the mill, it gets milled out, and then it goes to the skate shop and they put decks and wheels on it. And it's a really cool intro. And so you're building up this skating company, and selling boards is your whole goal. So every objective you do, you sold 5,000 more boards by completing this objective. You skated with this skater, so you sold 10,000 more boards. You have to get up to 1,000,000 boards. So you finally do that, and there's literally nothing that happens. Not a, "You sold 10 million or 1,000,000 boards, congratulations." Not a single word. It just continues on in the open world. It's like any other objective. I could have done the tutorial and got more information of, "Hey, good job, you did something that you're supposed to do. Now continue on to here," out of a tutorial lesson, than the end mission of the game. And it was just a bummer to see that. So I finished Skate 3 the other night, and last night was the last night of January. And so I loaded up Game Pass. I loaded up Game Pass, and there's this game that came out on Game Pass last night that I played the Switch version of it, only because we were moving at the time, and I like literally had to wait in a parking lot for like 3 hours while people were touring our house and going through it while we were trying to sell it. And so I sat in the parking lot, and I had my Switch, and I played this game called Taiko something something Drum Master. It is a rhythm game that is based off of like you tapping buttons to basically drum. And there's like a whole drum peripheral, but it's on PC and all this stuff now. So you use the controller, and it's very Japanese, which I don't like, and it feels very unauthentic um in its Japanese flavorings. Like, you've got like the weird cats and dogs doing dancing and using maracas and wearing hats, almost like Katamari Damacy. But Katamari Damacy has like this genuine feel to it, where it's not trying to be weird for the sake of being weird. It is just eccentric. It is just weird and fully genuine. This one feels like, hey, Katamari Damacy is popular. Everyone loves that series, and it feels very random, right? So let's make a game that's random. It feels like an executive understood what the word random means, and made a game out of it. And so, like, all of the stuff happening in the background is all just random crap of, you know, babies and drums, playing the maracas and doing dancing with mariachi hats on. And it looks really stupid. And I kind of hate everything about the game, other than some of the music. Some of the music is really good. They do a couple songs from games like Undertale, which I'm not a big Undertale fan at all, but I do like Megalovania, the song, and that's in there. And another one, I can't remember what it's called. They do Daddy Mulk from Ninja Warriors. They have it's not Passing Breeze, it's Splash Wave from Outrun, the arcade game. So they've got some really good songs, and they have a lot of anime songs, which I don't like at all, but there are a couple that are enjoyable to play. There's Attack on Titan one, there's a Dragon Ball Z one, and a bunch of other ones. There's a bunch of Vocaloid songs too, which are stupid and I hate it, but there's a catchy one in there. And then there's randomly some pop songs, but not like, oh, hey, there's a bunch of pop songs. It's like, here's two pop songs. One of them is a Jackson 5 cover, and the other one is Last Christmas by Wham, and it makes zero sense that that song is in there. Like, no reason that that song should be in there, especially against all the other ones like Daddy Molk and, Attack on Titan's song and theme song and stuff. It's a really weird that that song is in there. And then there's a bunch of a couple pulls of classical music, either a actual classical arrangement or a rock version of classical arrangement songs. It's a weird game. But I started streaming it, and then I just couldn't stop until I finished the game. I played through it in one sitting for like 2.5 hours or something, and I just played through every single song in a row. I'd start a song, I'd finish it, and move on to the next song. It was like playing Rock Band, but just sitting around, just playing the song over, and like going through the set list over and over and over and over and over and over. And I had a really fun time with it. So it was really, really enjoyable. But man, some of those songs really suck. There's a lot of those songs that don't do a good job of making it so that you feel like you're playing the actual song. Some of the beats don't make sense. Some of the placements of the beats don't make sense. Some of you're pounding a drum to ambiance noise or like a random guitar lick or something like that instead of actual drum beats. Like there's like probably about 5 songs in that entire game out of I think like maybe 50 that are really, really fun to play. And those are the ones that use the beat of the actual song, dun 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 dun, like almost tribal drums. When you get into that rhythm of feeling like you're hitting and pounding drums like a tribal beat, it's really, really cool. But when you're just kind of tapping buttons and it doesn't really make sense, it feels pointless. So I beat that game last night. And then for January's Game of the Month Club, we decided on a game called A Plague Tale: Innocence. And holy crap, this game is amazing. I am mad that people did not talk about this game at all. I have no idea why people didn't talk about this game. I remember when the game came out, and Giant Bomb did a quick look, or they did a it was like a direct or a press conference or something where that game got shown off, and I went, ooh, that game looks pretty interesting. I didn't really understand what the game was, but it looked interesting from the trailer. And I've never watched trailers unless they're in press conferences anyways. So I waited for the game to come out. The game came out, and unfortunately, like, I was traveling a lot. My wife wanted to play it, and so we were going to have to wait, and then I didn't want to spend $60 on it because I didn't really hear anyone talking about it, and I kind of forgot the game existed. And so it's on Game Pass, and we've been playing through it. A bunch of people in our Discord already finished the game, and it literally wasn't even February yet. People finished it like this weekend in the end of January. So I don't know what those people are going to do. They want to play Death's Door, and I think we'll do like an extra credit assignment of Death's Door as well. But I don't want to set a precedence for that if I don't have to. But man, A Plague Tale: Innocence is so interesting. Without spoiling it, because I only played a little bit of it last night, and I got to chapter 4. Apparently, it's a pretty short game, all things considered. So it's like 10 hours long. So I got to chapter 4, and it is so crazy. It's really intense. The music is crazy intense so that you feel on edge the entire time you're playing it. So like my wife had to just go, that's it. I can't listen to the violin strings anymore. I'm getting way too stressed out as I was playing it. But it's a really cool game, and I highly suggest anyone who wants to check it out, go and check it out. If you have no idea what this game really is and you're going, man, I really wish you would just describe the game. It's from what I've gathered from watching the trailer a couple years ago, seeing people talk about it in the Discord server, but staying away from spoilers. And from the hour and a half, 2 hours that I played of it last night, going up to chapter 4, it's like The Last of Us. It is very narrative and linear in its storytelling and level design so far. You can only go into certain areas, but you're just watching this character live their life and deal with this plague that's happening. So your character is like this girl, like 15-year-old, 16-year-old girl from France in 1348. So the 14th century, and in France. And you're hunting, you're out with your father in the woods, and your dog goes missing. So you try and find it, and your dog gets taken by this monster. And this is all literally like the beginning tutorial, so I'm not really spoiling anything. You go home and talk to your mom, and your mom is dealing with your brother, and your brother has like this weird issue where he's sick, and so she's trying to nurse him back to health, and it's not really working. The Inquisition, like the Spanish Inquisition, I guess, that no one expects, they show up at your doorstep unexpected, and they murder everyone, and you have to run away from them. And that's like, so far most of the game is you running away from people trying to kill you. And you have this little sling, like David and Goliath sling, that you are chucking rocks at people's heads and nailing them in the face. And it's just overall gruesome. And I just got to the part where this is all in the trailer stuff too. The game basically deals with these massive hordes of rats, plague rats, that murder everything in sight. And so you're like having to traverse across places without getting eaten and fending them off and stuff. And it is just hectic, intense, scary, terrifying, all wrapped into one. But it is really, really enjoyable. And so I've been playing that last night, and I can't wait to play a little bit more of it today or this evening. But that is our game of the month for February. So if you want to play along, feel free. Please, 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 please play it. It is so stinking enjoyable. But that is going to do it and wrap it up for this first live recording of the Game or Die podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Moore, pointing at the camera there. And thank you so much for listening. I really do appreciate it. If you have any questions, you can feel free to email at gameordie@gmail.com. And I will catch you next time. Thank you very much for listening.